Oya tanga to Atisha ka langren to man ro go res rabe jin da ga chi me da song ji jing chi yo.
Jeng nga
Ya bore.
chen nga pa so.
Za nya man ro go res.
So we're going over, as we have been for many months now, this text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, by the great master Atisha. And we've been going over this for, I think, at least 4 months, and we've done this every single Sunday.
Oya tanda nga so shika la be chi chin sa res.
So I believe that we've probably gotten through about half of the text.
Oje da de ne da nga so ka shu go re. Ji Atisha ke ten lang ro wo de ne da chi da she go de yo ma de ne ji she ka ji chu ji ne ya wo de so ga zong bo res. An nga so me lu den za ji bo re. Me lu den de za ji bo de yo be ga de ne nga so le ga ji ji ne chue nya le ji ya de da ge ji bo res.
And we will be explaining this text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And I don't claim to have any scholastic abilities or have any particular high level of intelligence relative to this text, but I will do the best to explain what I can explain. And at this moment, you have the human basis, you have a human form which has so many abilities and has so much potential. And it's based on this human basis that we possess that we can work or we can engage in practice which will allow us to realize our final aims. So it's because we have this human basis that we can do these things. And we will go over the various stages as explained in this particular text, and I will explain it to the best of my ability, although it might be limited.
Da nga so me lu den ge dul den chue du su zhuo ya de gar jin chue zhu go res ti ba yin na. An nga so su su chue be xin xin gang ge de wa de go res, de ngen de go ma res. Chue du su nya le je ba yin na ne de wa yong go res, chen de je bu yong go res, che ro xian ma mo bo le, an je bu yong go res. La da me den zang to ge re, ta ba to ge re. An ne sa je go mo to ba la so to ngol chue du ba la den ne yong go ya je res, ma de ba.
Why is religion important? Why is Dharma important? Here the translators note religion and Dharma are interchangeable in the Tibetan. So why is religion important? It's because we, as all other sentient beings, wish to have happiness and wish to not have to have suffering. And not only in this life, but we would also like to, in the future lives, have the potential present for us to have happiness. So it's through the practice of religion that we're able to actually abandon the rebirth in the lower realms and achieve the higher realm rebirth as gods and humans. We are able to achieve the state of nirvana or liberation, and we are able to achieve the state of unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment or Buddhahood. So we have the potential to do this, but it's independence upon religion that we can have the realizations which will allow us to achieve the fruits or achieve the resultant conditions.
What the name also made in the may send the Nubachev in you, what does Galo so Drubaina, and the mail to let how to do to this.
Draw.
And the mail to ne, and she Tabatuag Jodan, Dendutuag Jodan, Sanji Gobuntuag Joduso, and San Dan Lojan Jevaina, Lelhavajine, and the younger is.
And we have a human basis right now, and because we have a human basis, the human basis necessarily possesses the human mind. And this mind has the ability to figure out what the causal factors are for rebirths into the higher realms of gods and so forth, and abandonment of the lower realms, and the various practices and methods which will lead one to that abandonment, as well as eventually to a state of liberation, nirvana, or a complete Buddhahood. But it's independence upon the mind thinking about the causal factors for these results in order for them to actually occur.
다 가서 매일 내는 돌에 르가 예수 르가 르지 쉬어봐 상와 나기 쉬어봐 상와 예지 쉬어봐 상보 생 상보 나기 쉬어봐 상보 르지 쉬어봐 상보 들어와 계셔버렸어.
And it's
this one
this sum. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's very important to understand that the outlets from that we can create these types of negativity or positivity are the three doors of our body, speech, and mind. We need to try to cultivate positive body and actions of our body, and positive actions of our speech, and positive actions of our mind. Because if we can try to cultivate these types of positive actions, then positive actions results are always positive. So this would necessarily mean that the direct results from these positive actions would always be abandonment of suffering.
다 르가 예송기 때는 디바트 속에 때는 nghệ 송송 쓰고 말아봐 던도 거라스 르가 예송 거와도 속에 아니 라다 메다 라다 라마이다 네 타바다 어떤 게 사제 공원로서 누구서스.
So when we speak of the body Nyanja Suralam, the lo longa yi sum
르가 예송 디바
디바산
디바사바이나 아니 nghệ송도 동에 용 거라스.
then
르가 예송 거와두바이나 아니 말제그레 할제그레 라마인제그레 what they say these others.
and then the sum ale le sum the last one. Okay. So the three outlets of our body, speech, and mind can engage in positive actions or can engage in misdeeds or negative actions. And the positive actions will always lead to a rebirth into the higher realms. Positive actions will lead to rebirth into gods, demigods, or humans' realm. Whereas negative actions through our body, speech, and mind will lead to negative rebirths or rebirths into the lower realms, rebirths of suffering such as a hell realm rebirth, a hungry ghost rebirth, and animal rebirth. But within each action, there are three different levels of the potential or potency of that action. And these levels of action or levels of potency of action dictate what the result will be relative to the realm the person is in. So the greatest level of virtue being the God's realm and so forth.
어제 다때는 사제게 되는 가르쳐 그래. 든들 류약이 랑서 그래다. 람 타반 류약이 랑 사제 살 류약이 랑 림바 송송 버레스. 림바 동부도 제부 중도 통모용 라서 림바. 되네 건조송라 저선 류고네. 안에 먹주부 추디야부 송 디바야부 샤바이나. 되네 nghệ 송을 제그 말에 하도 말 제그레스. 림바 동부드레스.
Then Sumba Sanjay Lam, Nipa Nyande Lam, Tarpe Lam, Nyande Drapdu, Tarpe Lam, Dene Dendrug Lam, okay. So when we speak of the various causal factors for Buddhahood, liberation, and so forth, we see that there is a path which leads to Buddhahood, or unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. There is a path that leads to liberation or nirvana, and there is a path that leads to the higher realms. So these are actually called Buddha paths, liberation paths, and higher realm paths. So when we look at the first level, which is the higher realm path, or the path which produces rebirths into the higher realms and abandons the lower realms, you'll see that it's very important to have factors present that will allow this to take place. So in the smallest scope, the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, or in the higher path, the higher realm path, the topics which are emphasized are confession of downfalls, or acknowledgement of downfalls, an understanding of the law of cause and effect, and a foundation in the appropriate refuge, in the appropriate basis, which is the three jewels.
어제 다드네 생그 체남 때 도소나 아니 돈을 제바 이내 동에 요아 제가 나지 동에서 또 요아르스 아니 그 동에를 맡아봐도 땡도 더비요 말스 그 동에를 탑이 랑카르냐서 랭고르스나 안 돈이 도 비셔도 돈이 라미 땡은진다 추진 그 하바송데 냐래 제하가 림바송 니바데 제본 딘당 토모이 라지림바 링글라 어디 송데르스 말베
Then Tingenzi, the Tomani Mipa.
돈이 라미 땡은진 돈이 도 비셔 추진 그 하바 어디 송 냐래 제게나 타발로 야글랑레스.
So there are various things that are necessary for the small scope practitioner. And I forgot the foundation in ethics is also important. I don't know if I said that before, but I think I forgot to translate that. So when we move to a little bit higher level of thinking, we move to the medium scope, or teaching share in common with beings of middling or medium capacity. And there are various things in that particular category, various paths in that particular category that are indispensable. One must have the wisdom realizing emptiness. It's necessary to have single-pointed concentration, which utilizes as its object of observation emptiness, and also have the highest higher trainings present, and importantly, and the first being the highest higher training in ethical behavior. So it's necessary for the practitioner it's necessary for the practitioner to understand emptiness and engage in these practices in order to achieve liberation. And the reason that he or she does this is because he or she recognizes that not only is there suffering in the lower realms of cyclic existence, there is suffering which pervades all the different levels of cyclic existence. So if one is in the God's realm, for instance, he or she still has a level of suffering because suffering pervades cyclic existence, and it's called the suffering of cyclic existence. So the medium scope practitioner recognizes the downfalls of all of the realms of cyclic existence, recognizes that suffering pervades cyclic existence, and then looks for a pathway to liberation. And the pathway to liberation is what was just spoken of.
단 타발 로얄에 지미지 돈이 두비셔로 공가 가르치는 공부하려서나 추나 대바 주바즈미 덴진 되게 덴진도 로시레스 되게 죄셔발에 되는 요모제 용거 레사네 코알루크네 동에 요도고야 짜와 덴진레드레스 돈이 두바이나 덴진들 녀번 로레스 안 덴진긴 레볼 너너그래 동엘 너너 타발 로얄진사레스.
So why is the wisdom realizing, what is the, let me start that over. Why is the wisdom realizing emptiness indispensable? What is the actual meditation upon the wisdom realizing emptiness? It's recognizing that the grasping at true existence is the actual causal factor for cyclic existence in the first place. It's recognizing that grasping at true existence and seeing phenomena as truly established is a mistaken, incorrect view. So one must apply the antidote of the wisdom realizing emptiness brought on by various formulas, such as recognizing that phenomena dependently originates, and because of this dependent origination, it necessarily is empty of true existence or empty of true establishment. So one familiarizes his or her mind with this understanding of emptiness, and this understanding of emptiness then serves as an antidote to the mistaken view of the grasping at true existence.
어제 달 라바스 냐슬레바이나 타바토도고르스 이네 데네 덴지 본토거데 이네 덴지 바차도 본토고 마르스 덴지 바차도 본발라 아니 샹주그세 티바 지밀라니를 제고르스 샹주그세 냐스 말렘바 아니 덴지 바차 본토고 마르스 덴지 바차 마보나 아미션 차도고 마 사제도 마르스 사제고 본토발라 안 돈이 두베셔로 여 토네 아니 샤주가 생당 니지 전부터 잠바 어두스 냐솔래 고서스.
So the practitioner of the medium scope emphasizes his or her practice on the 3 higher trainings. So the 3 higher trainings are what the practitioner is involved with. Now, he or she is able to achieve the state of liberation, is able to eradicate the afflictive obstructions to liberation. So these can be eradicated, but the imprints of those afflictive obstructions or the obstructions to omniscience cannot be eradicated without bodhicitta, or without the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So the being of great capacity, or the great scope practitioner, must develop the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or bodhicitta, in order to eradicate the imprints of the obstructions to liberation, or the afflictive obstructions. So it's not possible to achieve complete Buddhahood, or to achieve the state of unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment without this mind that aspires to enlightenment. So for the great scope practitioner, not only the wisdoms previously spoken of are indispensable, but bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, is also indispensable, because that is what allows the imprints of the afflictive obstructions to be eradicated.
다 돈이 도 비셔러 들 샹주 생거 주부 제용도 돈이 도 비셔러 너바 천주자고 그래서 녀모 댄지를 너바 마제 댄지 바차를 너노 그래서.
So if one couples the wisdom realizing emptiness with the mind that aspires to enlightenment, it fuels that wisdom realizing emptiness and makes it much stronger. It makes it much more stable and powerful. And then these 2 things coupled together allow the imprints of the afflictive obstructions to be abandoned.
어제 다 돈이 도 비셔러 들 하글랑게 하랑제 안 돈이 도 비셔러 주부 제바이나 댄지 바자 봉을 너바 들 천주자고 그래서.
Geshe Rinpoche, the Julam, the Donido Bishirap.
장주가 생게 네 돈이 도 비셔러 주부 제바이나 안 너바 cheunduas.
That's the tantric. So if one then looks at the tantric vehicle, or the esoteric vehicle within the Mahayana, or great vehicle, bodhicitta is indispensable. And when one couples the bodhicitta with the wisdom realizing emptiness, it makes the practice of the tantric path, A, work, and B, be very powerful, and it allows the practitioner to have many abilities because of the power of the bodhicitta coupled with the wisdom realizing emptiness. And just a translator's note, Rinpoche listed 2 things, but he didn't say A and B. Just want to make sure that I added that in.
Tene ta shangchu sen nyawso len su ta tene junde menga duju ko ne sen ji su dang da jin nyaba ko da jin nyaba ji ko ne sen ji bi su ni song yo res.
So there are 2 causal factors for achieving the state of bodhicitta, or for achieving the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The first being the 7-point cause and effect for achieving bodhicitta, or for achieving the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And the actual literal translation of that is the 7-point cause and effect for achieving mind generation. And the second is called equalizing and exchanging self with others. So these are 2 particular lineages of teachings or practices which will produce the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So it is called the 7-point cause and effect for achieving mind generation, and the equalizing and exchanging self with others.
다 준데 망아 뒤주고는 생지바 있는다 다진여바 제고는 생지바 장주가 생줄 제송나 아니 장주 생바 자는 거스 말베.
So whether one utilizes the 7-point cause and effect for achieving the state of mind generation, or the equalizing and exchanging self with others, as soon as this realization is produced in one's continuum, then he or she becomes a bodhisattva.
쉐발 러비 추들라 파신 테발 러비 추다 한 러비 추니
Lapitsu, like Nietzsche's
쉐바 다
Lapitsu
가서 그래
Dorgare.
파신 TV 메테요송
Lesso.
하가 메테요송 라 카니
Lesso.
말스 말베
Lesso.
파신 테발 러비 추다 탄트럴 러비 추니 니 용거스
Lesso. So it's necessary, whether it be the perfection vehicle within the great vehicle tradition or the tantric vehicle within the great vehicle tradition, it's necessary to engage in these practices as well, and is indispensable in these two particular vehicles as well. Then the tama jeson, the chirang la tama nge chik jeson.
다 가다들 장주주 생제 사두 교발 러비 추들라 파신 테발 러비 추다 상한 러비 추니로 파신 테발 러비 추들 때네 라비 추딘지 러비 추다 라비 딩은지 러비 추다 라비 셔러지 러비 추 송들해서 말이야 뒤나송 제바지나 세스 버바지 텔레 제바이나 파신 줘 어디는 있어서 솔랑졸랑 돌랑골랑 어디서 있어 말이야.
So one must engage in the various practices within the perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle. So there is method and wisdom relative to the perfection vehicle and a method and wisdom which is relative to the tantric vehicle. So it's necessary to have method and wisdom in both the perfection and tantric vehicle. And in the perfection vehicle, the emphasis on the highest higher training in ethics, ethics, concentration, and wisdom, and then coupling that with the six perfections. So this is, in the perfection vehicle, what one needs to rely on.
어제 다 주딘지 러비 주도 가생하고 진짜버렸어. 땡은지 러비 줄라 네방가봉 뒤제지에서 어디서 그 로즈 진짜버렸어. 당아서 단다 싫어지 러바가도 레디어스 말봐.
So we have gone over the highest higher training in ethical behavior or ethics and explained the meaning of that. We've gone over the highest higher training in concentration or in calm abiding, or single-pointed concentration rather. And now we've arrived at the highest higher training in wisdom. So we'll be going over that now.
어제 다 쉐러도 가서 왔던 거다 고지 짤 때잖아 말이야. 가서 로즈 진짜로. 가서 쉐러 바로 신주던 저희 데바세면 왔던 거 진짜로.
인지케 다기엔.
인지 안 것도 고슬 때잖아. 쉐러 바로 신주도 주주시지 노아.
Jipju je
41
chi. Jipju je chi ngama lasong yene nge nyanjer lagi.
jublo shanti.
Okay, jipju je chi, jipju je ni, dangsum.
다든마
Gatsu.
담은데도와
Tu chena.
너시 다정 루번 주세야 돼야 진짜로 신내를 해야 진짜로.
Nijor.
내주 신내 루지는 너시 다정 루번 주루스 어때 타마시네 혼루사로와 다 쉐로 바로 신주도 저희 데바세면 주 어떤 마 쉐로를 말বে 쉐로 어떤 망고 조거스 쉐로 바로 신주도 저희 데바세면 주루스 돈이 두비 쉐로 지라게 지버스 돈이 두비 쉐로가 좋아하면아 데바세 두 말스 어떤 용거스.
So I believe we've read this already, but we're going to go through it again. Stanza 41 states, 41. When the practitioner has gained calm abiding, higher perception will also be gained. So that is the conclusion of the section on the calm abiding and so forth. And here again, translators note, higher perception is clairvoyance. But without practice of the perfection of wisdom, the obstructions will not come to an end. So here we see that we've arrived at the section on wisdom in this text. Okay. Good. And one thing that I forgot to translate before is in the perfection vehicle and tantric vehicle, one also has to traverse the various paths within the Mahayana paths of the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. So in the perfection and esoteric vehicle, one must traverse those paths. And Chik Jesung, Lama Chiran, the
다 총랑 두서 근걸로 타던 싫어 냐래 지야레스 총랑 거서 타도 싫어 냐래 지야레 시즈 버버지 냐래 지야레 요랑 거서 통랑 거서 울롱 어때서 냐래 지야레
Tatan Shira Lapsar. Rinpoche just said that it's necessary to have the method and wisdom that is a method and wisdom specific to each of those paths. So method and wisdom specific to the path of accumulation, method and wisdom specific to the path of preparation, method and wisdom specific to the path of seeing, method and wisdom specific to the path of meditation, and method and wisdom specific to the path of no more learning. The method and wisdom also is important within those 5 Mahayana paths, whether it be esoteric vehicle or perfection vehicle.
다 저던 싫어서 근데 뭐 요아 싫어 되네 안에 내가래 봐 군주도 싫어나 내로를 봐 저도 싫어서 어떤데 송산도 왔을랑 그러지 몰래 내가래 봐 저던 주주세 최근가로 군주도 대단히 만두 비쳐요 말했어 초초도 말해 안에 주주나 군주 대바도 대바 가롱이 미쳐는 그래서 대니 가롱 많이 비쳐요 말했어 가르 최 장에 가르 있나야 야나 구조 대바래 야나 돈다 대바래 그래서 돈다 대바도 비 싫어데 야주레스 돈이도 비 싫어서 쓰고레스 다 군주도 비 싫어데 대나룰 단람나 모용 그래서 내가래 봐 군주도 비 싫어서 제비 내가 어떤데 근데 송산도 와서랑 리치면 술어데 용도 거래 제단 최근가 시비 싫어를 요아레스 말베
So, when we speak of wisdom, there are various types of wisdom. There are many different kinds of wisdom. There is when we look at the Jetsun Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo, he speaks of 2 kinds of wisdom, the wisdom realizing the conventional and the wisdom realizing the ultimate. When speaking of wisdom, the highest form of wisdom is the wisdom realizing emptiness. That wisdom realizing emptiness is the wisdom which is realizing the ultimate. But there are many, many different kinds of wisdom in the conventional wisdom. And when we look at the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering and truth of origin, if it is the Dungdan Demba, Dungyal Demba Dang, Gonjun Demba, Yena, the Chap, the Gari Lapsang.
다들 최근가로 야나 된다 대바래 야나 구조 대바니 가로 많이 비쳐요 말했어 야나 뒤지 야나 뒤마시 네가 뒤는 거와 내가 리바스나 소아리바스나 매 말면 매 다다 속으로 좀 제다진도 와서 어디로 소아리바스 그래서 다다 속 매로 좀 지금도 와서 대시비 싫어들 소아리바스 그래서 군주시비 싫어です다리바스나 산스크리트다 발리다 안내 랭귀지 시비 싫어진도 와서 어디래 안에 다리바스 말해 다리바 되네 참아리바스 나된 그리바도 말해 나된 시샤바 리발로 좀 제시로도와 뭐 참아리바스 그러와 되네 난된리바스 다 나슈고 돌래 저와 가지도 타바주 리바도 이제로 리빈내가 시비 싫어도서 군주도 싫어졌어
Tene the Gunzo Bishara Yena, Dunda Nemba Yimi Cha, Gari Lapsang, Dunda Nemba Gunzo Demba, Gari Lapsang, Tene.
Juduna?
De.
Juduna Yana, Gunzo Demba, Yana Dunda Demba Nigaroin Guru. Tangasu Madame to Galo Paya Guru, Gunzo Demba.
Lesser.
Dada, Meg, Neto, Gunzo Demba.
Lesser.
To Tishi, to Gunzo.
Lesser. Okay, so. We speak of the wisdom realizing the ultimate, the wisdom realizing the conventional. The wisdom realizing the conventional, for instance, is the wisdom that is achieved by a doctor. The knowing that a doctor has, all of the knowledge that he or she has gained, the knowledge of the arts, the knowledge of valid cognition, knowledge of pathways, the knowledge of the various attributes of conventional reality, and also the aggregates themselves, the human basis, the aggregates All of these things fall into, understanding of all of these things fall into the category of the wisdom realizing conventional. But when we look at phenomena, we cannot find a phenomena which is neither conventional nor ultimate. If it is phenomena, it is necessarily either conventional, if it is an understanding of phenomena, it is necessarily an understanding of the conventional or an understanding of the ultimate. So if one understands phenomena, it has a wisdom realizing phenomena. There are only two categories of phenomena that one can have wisdom of. There is nothing other than these two. There is not other than conventional and ultimate. So one cannot find a phenomena that is not either one or the other. The conventional wisdom is the wisdom of the mundane things and so forth, and non-mundane things that we can perceive and so forth.
다 shera mumbu yuwaarde ine tuni tubi shera de, tuni tubi tuandang tubi shera de mena nyomo bata shiyi driba se tugu mares, shera paru shinju dan trayi driba se manjurus, wad marbe. Shera paru tuni tubi shera mena driba se tugu mares, tuni tubi shera chamba guna driba se tugu ribasana, tuni tubi shera chamba guna driba se tugu mares, tuni tubi shera tani chujada guguris, shaji jacu paru dundruwala shubani gugundu wad shiyi tugu mare.
So, the highest form of wisdom is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And if it is the wisdom realizing emptiness, it is necessarily the wisdom realizing the ultimate. So, it's necessary to have this wisdom which realizes the ultimate in order to eradicate the afflictive obstructions, in order to eradicate the obstructions to omniscience, and so forth. But only relying upon emptiness is not enough. It is not possible to achieve any of these it is not possible to eradicate these imprints of the obstructions to omniscience by relying upon emptiness alone. One needs to have both method and wisdom in order to eradicate the obstructions to omniscience. These are the things that keep one from reaching the state of Buddhahood. So these must be abandoned in order to achieve the final goal, and you must rely both on method and wisdom. Just as the great master Chandrakirti states in the Madhyamika Avatara that the great goose must fly, utilize two wings to fly over the ocean to the other side. Likewise, the practitioner must utilize the two wings of method and wisdom to fly over the ocean of cyclic existence to the other side, which is liberation and Buddhahood. This was stated in the Madhyamika Avatara, but in neither of these two, method or wisdom are indispensable.
Dene sozo dene Atisha ki toni dubi shero da ane shachu ki sen ta de shero nyandu nyale je gures chuja ta marbe.
And this is why Atisha has stated that one must have a union of, or a combination, combine the two, method and wisdom in order to be successful.
Wa tendo riba malu pombe shero paru shinju shero paru shinenju ta do taji gumba jas ta da shero ni chuja da nyale je gures.
Thus, to eliminate all obstructions to liberation, by the way, number 42, everyone. Thus, to eliminate all obstructions to liberation and omniscience, the practitioner should continually cultivate the perfection of wisdom of skillful means. So here it says, in order to eliminate these obstructions, not only the afflictive obstructions, but the obstructions to omniscience, which are the actual imprints of the afflictive obstructions, it's necessary to cultivate the perfection of wisdom. So the advice is given by Lord Atisha, and here, if one wants to eliminate all obstructions, and they all infers that one wishes to become fully enlightened.
Waji tatane tautan tayi shiro tayi tautan jang kanshi chingwa shi songba. Tishi nika pongma jas. Tautan tayi shiros. Shiro jangba guna, ane shiri pongtu ma res, chingwa res. Tau jangba guna chingwa res. Ane nika chingwa shi songwa res. Tautan tayi shiro tayi tautan jang kanshi chingwa shi songbas. Nika nyale ma jiba ji re nyale jine kari yuwarisana shiri puntu mara shiri chindi garis shiri chingwa je tuku ma non kat ken not kat ote sanji ka song yuwaris kanshi chingwa she songba jusen tiyi shir nika pong ma jas tashi nika pongju yu mara tashi nika nyale je uris tashi re nyale jine yunga ma res.
So here it says wisdom without skillful means and skillful means too without wisdom are referred to as bondage. Therefore, do not give up either. So here the emphasis again is on the necessity of practicing method and wisdom in order to eliminate these obstructions to omniscience and so forth in order to achieve the final goal. So here they say, so here Atisha states that just having skillful means is like being bound, because one is bound to their present state or bound to cyclic existence. Or just having wisdom, it produces the same state. So Atisha compares it to being bound or being in bondage, because one cannot achieve freedom here, which is a synonym for liberation, without having the union of those two.
So please
look at number 44 now. So number 44 says to eliminate doubts concerning what is called wisdom and what skillful means, I shall make clear the difference between skillful means and wisdom.
What the one talk Shiros and the Karzagre, Toss in the Kar, Todd Shiros and Karsagwaris, Jibaina, and Atisha, and the Todd and Shiro Iwa shaking his, Todd the Shiro Iwa, the Todd Denders, Shiro and Denders and Yama shaking his, what the shade was. Todd Shiro Gantan Takanshi, Tatuntan Pombi Shire, Tanan down the Shiroji, and I was Shivas, Todd the Karina never Tazun Eurota, and the Shiro Karina never Tazun Euro dot, and the Tog Karina, Shiro Karina, Tazun Euro, Tazun the Pombi Shide, and then Tondere, Shiro and there is in Gamashigi in Das, what the Sun was.
To eliminate doubts concerning, I'm going to read it again, concerning what is called wisdom and what is skillful means, I shall make clear the difference between skillful means and wisdom. So here is the promise to compose and the promise to explain. Lord Atisha has stated that he will make it very clear what the difference is and what the nature is of, will make it very clear what the difference is between method and wisdom. And, you know, what differentiates the two, what type of activities fall into the category of wisdom and what type of activities fall into the category of method. So it's necessary to employ, it's necessary to clearly understand the difference between method and wisdom in order to have the ability to practice. So here he's not only stating that he will teach this, but there is also a promise to make clear the difference. And here clear is very important. And why is it necessary to make it clear? It's so that the doubts of the student can be dispelled, or the doubts of the practitioner can be completely eradicated. So this is the reason for the explanation. So here Atisha is justifying the reason for including the importance of method and wisdom.
다든에 제주 시행아 되게 터그네 주 시행은 도스 제주 시행아 되게 새로 바로 신봉비 진비 바로 신라수 기유전나 단지 다 저완너지 터수시스 어떻게 터스겐데 렌더스 어떻게 터스송거스 말이야 알아 어디 차상지 로슈다
So number 45 says, apart from the perfection of wisdom, all virtuous practices, such as the perfection of giving, are described as skillful means by the victorious one. So here Atisha is going to explain what the difference is between method and wisdom, and we'll begin with the method. Or here it's called skillful means. I'm not sure if, I've got to look at the Tibetan. I don't think that it says skillful means in here. I think because top K is skillful means. I think it just says method. Here, Atisha states that apart from the perfection of wisdom, all virtuous practices, such as the perfection of giving, are described as skillful means by the victorious one. So here's an example of method, giving, and all virtuous practices, such as giving.
어제 다드네 터도 터송도 왔어. 터는데서 말이야. 나도 신도요로 시스 버바지. 시스 버바지는 나는 셔러 터 외송을 셔러도 외송 말이야. 당연히 대시전 이거 말이야. 안에 터데 안에 신도가 나네 돈이도 비 셔러도 외송을 했어. 외송 말이야. 셔러 외송 마인비 안에 진바 추진 저바 전주 와도 좀 터레스. 터레스 말이야. What the low matter was the low.
Tai yin and gawa yin chop. Rinpoche.
Shero Paru Shimpon business.
Nature top yin and gawa yin be chop.
Tai John told the Shero go in church to Tobayo Marta.
Tobayo Marta. Okay.
That told the Shero Chabaja Gundo, told the Shero Mosumaji, tossed the car Quashi Gudo, Shero Quashi Gudo, Hasan Chazan Shitaro. That Yinaya, Sis Purpasing on it, Shero de Vesuro. Shera Maimbi, Jimba, Chudin, Reba, Jundu, Sande, Nade, Torres, Tosung.
So it says all virtuous practices, such as the perfection of giving, are described as skillful means by the victorious ones. So here, anything that one engages in that is virtuous, if we look at the 6 perfections, for instance, the perfection of generosity, the perfection of ethics, the perfection of patience, the perfection of effort, the perfection of concentration, and then lastly, the perfection of wisdom. The first 5 perfections fall into the category of method. And the last perfection, obviously, which is wisdom, falls into the category of wisdom. So this is what is meant here by all virtuous practices. Lord Atisha differentiates the two in this way and speaks of that which is a virtuous practice and necessarily not wisdom. So that which is virtuous and necessarily not wisdom is necessarily method, or necessarily falls into the category of method.
다 돈이 되게 싫어도 외송 간레스. 외송 이미 주생 간레스. 돈이 되게 싫어 마인비 파신 담봉가데 더 이미 주생 간레스. 지바 이나스. 어디 러자다 로코줄.
So what are then the there will be various explanations that are necessary. An analysis must take place. What are the reasons for this? What is the reason that this is method and so forth? What is the when we speak of the wisdom realizing the nature of reality, what is the reason that this falls into a specific category and not another category? So here this must be explained.
다 돈이 되게 싫어되게 돈이 되게 싫어되게 주시발을 때는 죽은 누군 거라서 꼬니 말고 죽어도 죽고 죽어도 누구여서 죽은 누지게 주요도들 외송서 그랬어 죽은 누지게 주요도들 타서 그랬어 타르와 소나서 그랬어 소나고 소다 예식이 소 외송대 예식이 소레스 외송되게 안에 조조 주권이 이제 나는 또 추구 라지 조제 인자 추구 라지 조제 인자 외송스라고 그랬어 싫어레스 안에 파신 담은가도 조조 주권이 이제 또 추구 라지 조제 인자 타레스 타다 쉐로자도 대찬자고 그랬어. 이제 대반이 나 다시니 레보코니 어디자고 말해.
Okay, so the wisdom realizing emptiness falls into the category of wisdom, and the method are the virtuous actions previously spoken of. And these two things produce different results. Method produces specific results, and wisdom produces specific results. And they produce the results relative to the bodies of the Buddha. When the wisdom realizing emptiness, or that type of wisdom, produces the Dharmakaya, or the actual truth body. And the other types of virtuous practices, which fall into the category of method, produce the form body. So the two divisions of the form body being the enjoyment body, Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya, or emanation body. So these bodies are produced by method, and the Dharmakaya, and the two categories of Dharmakaya, the nature body and the wisdom body, are produced by the wisdom. So when we look at the breakdown of the bodies of the Buddha, we can see that they are produced by the two different causal factors, being method and wisdom. And it's necessary to have all of these present to achieve the final aim or final goal. So that is why these are indispensable on the path. So the method and wisdom also falls into the category of the collections that one must create. So the collection of merit and the collection of exalted wisdom. So the collection of exalted wisdom obviously is the wisdom when we talk of method and wisdom, and that produces Dharmakaya. And two Dharmakayas are the nature body and the wisdom body. And the method, which is also called the collection of merit, produces the form body, and the two bodies within the form body of the enjoyment body and the emanation body, or Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya.
다 담마가야서 가르스나 사지기 투지 아미신 타지 쳔버도 지레스 사지기 나생이 되도 고네드레스 고네동 나생이 되도 돈이니부터 돈이니 원이고들 네 추구니레스 이시 추구당 원이고스 어디니 요드레스 말바 돈이도 비셔로 공부 따지 사지기 주지 나체도 좋은 거는 고네도 좋은 거 어떤 거
So the wisdom realizing emptiness, and this type of wisdom that produces the Dharmakaya, produces the two kinds of Dharmakaya, the nature body and the the wisdom body. And these two are broken down into categories of omniscience, the actual omniscience of the Buddha's mind, and the actual cessation within the Buddha's mind. So the nature body and the wisdom body, the ngoni chuku, the goden, then a ngoni chuku goden, then a the chuku, then yeshe chuku, non-chan. So the two categories of the Dharmakaya, the wisdom body and the nature body. The wisdom body is actually, the wisdom body is the omniscience of the Buddha's mind. The nature body is the actual cessation. It's stated, and this is one thing I forgot to translate from the last sentence, that the Four Noble Truths, the two truths, two truths must be understood. Of the Four Noble Truths, the first two need to be abandoned. The second need to be cultivated so that the cessation can be produced. So the abandonment of the first two, the practice of the second two, and understanding of ultimate and conventional truth, the two truths, produce the two bodies. So that is what is stated.
다 소나고 추게 맞게 라제데 조고도 조용 거랬어. 원나 조고 가르스나 안에 롱고도 쪼고 샤자문은 보다다 그래서 보다사나다 따라사나다 잠베야사 어떻게 조고 그래서 더 조용 거랬어.
So the collection of merit produces the actual form body, the Robokaya. And the Robokaya has the two divisions of Sambhokaya and Nirmanakaya, or the form body, which has two divisions, which are the enjoyment body and the emanation body. And these form bodies are the actual bodies of deities, such as Medicine Buddha and so forth, or Shakyamuni Buddha. So when we speak of form body, it's referring to the actual form of the Buddhas.
And
the two categories being enjoyment body and emanation body.
안내 소노 초레가 놓았어. 짐바되게 조고도 조용도 놓았어. 안내 가서 사면래 너네 안내 담보 샤체와도 가르 터리 요송래. 어떤 거 터인 그랬어. 사면은 뭐죠 터 말이야. 터인 그랬대.
So now we know, for instance, if we're engaging in generosity, this falls into the category of the collection of merit. So by being generous, we're actually producing the causal factors for our own form body, for our own ability to achieve the state of form body. So it's when excuse me. So these fall into the collection of merit, as well as the seven-limb prayer, for instance. When we look at the seven-limb prayer, we look at prostration. So it's important to clarify when we speak of engaging in generosity, and we speak of the seven-limb prayer and the prostration in the seven-limb prayer, it's important to put this one clarifying factor in, that the motivation is to achieve the state of unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. That must be the basis of these activities, because if it's not, it does not fall into the category of the collection of merit. So the way that you can start to understand these is begin to ask yourselves certain questions. You look at the seven-limb prayer, for instance, and most of the seven-limb prayer falls into the category of collection of merit, if coupled, again, with the desire to become a Buddha for the sake of, the desire to become, to achieve the state of complete Buddhahood. You need to ask yourself, when we look at any of these things, any actions, okay, so is prostration a collection of merit, or is it a collection of wisdom? Is offering a collection of merit, or is it a collection of wisdom? So you can begin to engage in an analysis of these things based on what you've learned.
So we read
the four immeasurables here, the prayer of the four immeasurables. Is that method, or is that wisdom? And the answer is, it falls into the category of method.
So if
we make a mandala offering, is that mandala offering method or wisdom? And we would say that the mandala offering itself, actually making the mandala offering, is a collection of merit, is merit.
So if
we're doing mantras, doing Om Mani Padme Hum, for instance, engaging in mantric recitation of any of the deities, if we're engaging in that, we can ask ourselves, is this method or is this wisdom? And the answer is, it's method. So if you engage in these for extended period of time, then the actual two bodies of the Dharmakaya and form the actual two bodies of truth body and form body slowly over time can be produced based on these realizations.
와 맞대 요소도 다 나로서 생줄 때는 가르치지 수수줄 몸도 와서 what 냐네 제기나 맞대 요소 냐네 몸 제한도 와서.
So one needs to engage in a large amount of practice and have a large amount of perseverance in order to achieve these final aims, in order to cultivate these two forms of method and wisdom.
와 맞대 요소 딱 간데 새로 바로 신본비 새로 바로 신본비 제비 바로 신로서 기초나 타제다 저완노 타수시스 타수 어디서 말해 타는 싫어서 타서야 돼 어디 타서겐도 어디 타게 된다데 최소 조건이 지나는 조조규라진 주시 어디라 타서 그랬어 최소 조건이 지나네 최고도는 누고 담아가야다 로바가 말해 담아가야 그 주시겐데 요송레스 삼부가에서 그러면 로바가야 주시겐들 타올라고 그랬어 주센터레스.
So what is the reason behind this? What is at the root of reasoning behind this? What does this mean? And at the root, Jason, 양재스러나.
답변나가서 샤제바이나 주제 터이드스나 제소나 최소 조건이나 조규라제 주제에 샤자월라 되네. 아니 조고도 농군도 용거를 대기소서 터레스.
Okay, so we can engage in an analysis using logic, using reasoning by saying, is the subject prostration method or wisdom? We would say that the subject prostration is method because it produces the actual form body. And if it is an activity which produces the form body, it is necessarily falls into the category of method. So, and when I say, translators note, just so that it's clear, when I say produces, direct producer, when I'm talking about the cause, it's a special kind of cause, but it's inferred here, and it's the direct cause.
다 샤자와 더좀 조 생게 생바 꼴롱라 라레 그래스 아니 하다메이 내송도 동을 타네 하다메이 대상도 토나냐 샤자바이나 집이 중을 줄로 자 그래스 아니 던로 하이런 루야가 줄로 자 그래스 되네 나 타바토고도 타바토비 제 샤자바이나 팀에 줄로 자 말해 집은 딩 사제 고본토비 제 샤자바이나 안에 조건 로직 줄로 야근도 왔어 꼴롱도 다반 나오지래서 그 다반 나오지 말베 다비 꼴롱 가봐 주주래서 소 히지바되게 가지고 왔을 때.
So at the root of these activities, at the root of activities is the actual mind, which is the driver, the driver that actually motivates these activities. So it's necessary for us to have a proper motivation in order for us to achieve results that we wish to achieve. If we have the motivation while we're making prostrations to be reborn into the higher realms, and this is why we're doing the prostrations. These prostrations become a vehicle which will lead one to a state free from the lower realms, or to a state of the higher realms. If one is wishing to achieve the state of nirvana for him or herself alone, or the state of liberation, and then has this motivation while making prostrations, then this type of action creates the causal factors for the achievement of liberation or of nirvana, and so on and so forth. So the motivation that one has, if one is motivated to be free from the lower realms, then that is what the activity produces, virtuous activity produces. If one wishes to achieve liberation or nirvana, then that is what the virtuous activity produces. And if one wishes to achieve Buddhahood and has that as the basis, then that is what these activities will produce.
다 추zambu당 gemba당 타바당 던로당 gem도 참말로 생여주 버스 생 도자되게 gem송도 조용 버스 생 zambu되게 던로당 타바당 사지 고본도 조용 버스 말বে 또 생레스 생.
So who created these negativities? And at the root of negativities and of the lower realms are the various types of unpleasant states that we have to endure. we will find at the root a mind. And we will find that at the mind there are both positive minds and there are negative minds. And the positive minds producing positive results or pleasant states, and negative types of mind or bad minds which produce negative states or unpleasant states. And so we needn't look further than the root causal factor, which is our mind.
What's a number of choosing a sales over the sales over this, and Chulu Yenda to house over this. What's the quality of modern was?
So in Buddhism, we say that this came. Why is this like this? So it came from the previous state, and it is an effect of a previous cause. But in the non-Buddhist traditions, we see that there is an explanation of an actual creator God, or God creating these things. So the Buddhist tradition is a little different, whereas we feel that it's the mind that creates these things, non-Buddhists in some cases feel that an external God does.
What that thought the shadow, what quadrant or thought the shadow to, and the thought change what the shadow was, Marbe.
So this is the understanding of the difference between method and wisdom come up, like we normally do. That will also.
The Jiluda, Jeju Shedua, Uncle Jeju Shedu, 46, or the Tajiluda, Togun Ogi Dani J. Kanji Shero now Gomba, then the Junior to two. Dame Jibu Gombi means what the Tajilu and what the Rojagis, Marbe. Then the third son, then the Yusun Lake. Togi your son, then the Yusun. Togun Ogi Daniji, Togun Ogi Daniji, Kanji Shero now Gomba, then the Junior to toes, Dame Jibu Gombi, or the Tambu Tajilu.
So number 46, it says, whoever, under the influence of familiarity, with skillful means cultivates wisdom, will quickly attain enlightenment, not just by meditating on selflessness. So here another explanation is given of the importance, and we've finished the section. It seems though we've been going over the section on method, the introductory section on method, and we will now be moving on to the section on wisdom.
다 타고하게 다니 제스 타고하게 다니 제송도 상주가 생다 샴바다 준데 명아 뒤주고는 생집이 출다 다제냐바 제고는 생집이 출라서부터 고 더도 유비토네 안에 가시 싫어 나 공바스 되네 싫어 냐도 공기나 안 사지 고문주부 도그다스 되네 상주녀도 토스 사지 고문주부 도그스 안에 주에 뭐 용고문주부 토용고레스 다음에 제부 공비면서 돈이 두베셔라 제부군 샤주가 세마군도 요샤바이나 대용고 말다스 다음에 제부군나 사지고 토도고 말다스 샤주가 세다 돈이 두베셔라도 두가냐도 공고레스 what does only zamarbe.
So it's necessary to have these two things together. Whoever under the influence of familiarity with skillful means cultivates wisdom will quickly attain enlightenment. So one will quickly be able to achieve the state of Buddhahood. Here, that's what the Enlightenment is referring to here, the great vehicle enlightenment. So one will be able to quickly be able to achieve this, but one must have both method and wisdom in order to achieve this. So it's not only that one will not quickly achieve it, one will not be able to achieve enlightenment without relying on both of these things.
타고하게 다니지 상주가 생다 니지 전부터 야바도 공하더라
타고하게
다니 제스 상주가 생다 니지 전부로서 공비 토네 셔로 공기나 사지 공부 주부 용거레스 타 장바 공나 사지 공부 토토 말에 셔로 장바 공 토토 말에 다음에 제부 공비 메스.
So one thing I forgot and Rinpoche did repeat was that in the method section, method refers to such things as the mind that aspires to enlightenment, love, and compassion, a practice of these things, generosity, and so forth. So all of these things, bodhicitta, all of these things fall into the category of the actual method. The wisdom is the wisdom recognizing the nature of reality, and that is what the wisdom refers to, whereas the method refers to the actual means that the actual activities or practice one engages in, such as love, compassion, etc.
So now
that is the collection of merit section, or the method section, and now we've arrived at the collection of exalted wisdom, or the section of wisdom.
So when
we look at the Kaju tradition or the Nyingma tradition, we'll find that they do Nundru practice, which is called the preliminaries, or preliminary practice, and this is done to try to cultivate the collection of merit. This is the reason for the Nundru practice. It's a purification practice that is done in order to create merit and expel negativity. So when we speak of the preliminaries, what are real preliminaries? When we speak of Nundru practice, what is the real thing? The real thing is achieving the state of renunciation, achieving the state of bodhicitta, understanding the Four Noble Truths, understanding all of these things. This is what the preliminaries really are. One does not need to go away off into the middle of nowhere and go on retreat in order to achieve these things, in order to achieve preliminaries. It's possible to do so without a retreat. So Nundro, one does not have to be on retreat to do, and the real preliminaries are the foundational practices which will allow one to traverse the paths.
다 상제가 주파르 디심비 티바다 제버 상가 도지 티바스 파신 티비 라도 송가 주레스 상가가 라도 제버레스 파신 티비 존의 제비 안내가 조샤서 야다비 따와로서 도스고 주셰발라 네네 하가 라도 중우레스 와도 헌도 원에 도스레스 간조가 상바다 자운로다 포면주다 어디 사면란다 샤주가 생 공부도서 야부 존나 헌도 원에 도스레스.
So the real, as stated, the real preliminaries, or the real Nundru practice is achieving the state of renunciation and bodhicitta, having a foundation and refuge, understanding the four immeasurables and so forth. The reason is because the Tantra can be practiced in dependence upon the perfection vehicle. The perfection vehicle is called the causal vehicle, and the tantric vehicle, or esoteric vehicle, is the resultant vehicle. And the reason for this is because the tantric vehicle is cultivated, or actually arises in dependence upon the preliminaries, or the perfection vehicle. So this is why the true preliminaries that are indispensable are the foundational realizations which are in the perfection vehicle, which allow one to practice Tantra, because Tantra is a resultant vehicle and cannot work and will not actually produce any realizations without these foundational practices of the perfection vehicle. So meditation upon the mind that aspires to enlightenment is very important. Okay, so now looks like we'll do dedication, mandala offering dedication for anyone who's, I think Adrian explained everything, right? The prayers. So we'll do the end of the book prayers, and then we will do question and answer. And again, don't hesitate to ask questions, and just try to formulate them in the form of a question and not a statement. Okay. We will do the concluding prayers only in Tibetan. Daji mu ni ju ji men don jam ri ra lin ji ni ne yen ba ni zan ye jin du mi ni Nendan rowa kun la gambena Che ba je zun lo zandra ba yi Jembe nyimbo rindu zenye yo Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niratayami Yambe Bawu Jida Jin Padang Gondu Zambo Deyan De Jinde Deda Gunji Jesu Daloje Gewa Deda Danje Radungo Juzon Shebe Jewa Danje Ji Ngawa Gala Chodu Babang Dajengi Sawa Dikunyang Sambo Chuji Radungo Wanyi Angri Rawing Owe Jingam Ning Nan Dewa Malun Jung Wene Chenrezig Wang Tenzin Yadzo Yi Shamesi Banu Lo zon zambo jon jen nangala yon rin jamba zebe gewe jin lon hando me nemba zin jema yen so wanda Shaman yo Lo dru wun ye yong an mong ba ze Na ve go zon do nga tan ju zin Tan ju zun lu tu zan Taroji Geshe Lharampa Shadeju. Two channels. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we'll do question and answer, and then we'll have the closing ceremony.
Well, just leave your microphone
Oh,
on
that's
the table,
right. I forgot we taped that.
because we'll have to-
Okay. So you had a question?
Yeah. I was wondering if you might be able to talk about the 7-point cause and effect, or 7-point for bodhicitta.
Sure. Juje Mengla Dun, the Nyun La Ranang.
Ore. Ta jude menga dude tambo mashebas. Senjen taje mayima gungure sungores. Senjen taje mayima. Senjen taje mayima de ane kandes gungure. Senjen taje marebe marebe sena. Ane senjen taje mare diores. Ane mayima jusen karesena. Ane ngasul jawal senjen kandejine jawal thuma yo mares. Jawal thuma medu ane senjen kandejine ngasul ama she manyumba je mares. Ama she nyoba shadares. Mojo 저 ngami amares. 저 ngami amain 비쳐그래. 천디 아마도 아마로was. 저 ngami ama 가서 예송하러 마도 마제바이나 안 아마오냐 뭘로 제거was. 저 ngama 세정 걸로 아마레서 어떻게 공부하래서 말해. 너무 지시잖아. 뉘기는 너무 죽는 줬.
So the 7-point cause and effect, that was the question, right? Or was it equal? That's what I thought. 7-point cause and effect for achieving bodhicitta has the various steps in it. The first step is recognizing that all sentient beings are our mothers. So to even get to that point where that's a belief, it's necessary to engage in an analysis of that fact. Why is that possible? Is that possible? And we come up with various reasons. And the reasons that we can establish are that there are past lives and future lives. And since we have existed beginninglessly, there has not been a beginning to our continuum, then it follows that all sentient beings have necessarily, at one point in time, been our mother or been very dear to us. So if one was our mother in a previous life, then they are necessarily still our mother. If one is a mother previously, they are still a mother. They are not, it does not make it so they no longer are a mother, technically speaking. So this is why it is appropriate for us to say that all sentient beings are our mother, because of this logical progression. But in order to truly understand and believe this, you must meditate upon it. Familiarize yourself with it, rather.
다 신전하지 랑그 많이 받을 고아차발라 저와 가마 여바 마시나 저와 가마 여바다 저와를 토마 매바 마시나 신전하지 많이 랑그 많이 받어야 돼 롤산 고야 갈래 가버렸어 저와 가마 여바 채우고스 저와 가마 여바 여비 딱 가려와서나 안는 가서 찌마 답이 가서 셰바 놓았어 셰바 가내숑 가서 깜파랑 근데 셰바도 셰방 가마를 된 중얼마도 셰바 많이 받 셰바를 해요 말이지 버다 나도 찌마 답이 셰바데 네, 그 셰바 가마지 혼도 손도 그 리바 임베서 셰바 임베서 셰바 인상 셰바 가마지 혼도 손알라 되네 네 셰바 용고 마도 셰바 가마지 혼도 마송아 셰바 간데 용고래 사 셰바래 그 말에 또 셰바래 그 말에 신 셰바래 그 말에스 어디서 그 말 어디다 체리바도 순간 어디 가도 내가 두고 그랬을 때
So science, these are what we're going to go over now. I'll reverse it so it makes more sense. So in order to establish that all sentient beings are our mother, we have posited that there are previous lives and future lives. So we must come up with an explanation of this. How is it possible? Are there past lives? Is this a true existent truth? Is this something that exists? And when I use the word existent here, I'm speaking of something that exists, not truly existent. That's a different terminology. So is this something that exists? So then one must engage in analysis and figure out where consciousness comes from. And then when we engage in analysis and investigate, we will find that consciousness must cause consciousness. There is never anything other than consciousness which has the potential to produce consciousness. A rock does not have the potential to produce consciousness. Earth does not have the potential to produce consciousness. A tree does not have the potential to produce consciousness. Wood doesn't have the potential to produce consciousness. The only thing that can produce consciousness is consciousness. So a previous moment's consciousness can create this moment's consciousness, but nothing other than consciousness could ever create consciousness. So once we've traced this back and we posit that consciousness causes consciousness, then we will find that there is no traceable first consciousness. We will have to assert that consciousness is beginningless because there is no way to assert a first consciousness. It's illogical. So this is the reason that we say sentient beings are our mother, because we first established the fact that we had previous lives and will have future lives. And once we establish that, then we look at the certainty that during that beginningless period of time, then we must have had each and every sentient being as our mother at some point in time or another, or their continuum was a mother at that time and our continuum was a child at that time. So then once we establish past life, then we can establish the certainty that sentient beings are our mother. And we rely upon all of these reasons to produce these realizations.
어디 셰발 저월 도마 매바도 신전 탄지게 저월 도마 매바르스 세전 걸 저월 도마 매바인자 아주 아마 제뉴고 샤다르스 저월 감에 아마르.
So just as our consciousness is beginningless, other sentient beings' consciousnesses are beginningless also. So we don't say, though, that these all sentient beings, in a literal sense, are our mother right now, because that doesn't necessarily make sense. But what we can say is that they were our mothers before. We can truly posit that. And one thing from the previous translation was that scientists could benefit greatly if they involved themselves or investigated the consciousness from the Buddhist perspective.
다 생전 단지 저가 소소 아마 신용나 바바 신용을 네 빈자당 참마시 자 신용을 니 신용을 지버렸어.
So since beginningless time, though, every sentient being has been everything to us. They have been our mother, our father, our enemy, our friends, our neutrals. All sentient beings have had the potential over a period, beginningless period, to be all of those things to us. So there is no certainty within a sentient being as to whether they will connect with us or not, because previously they were everything to us.
다 저와 아마 요말 셰바들 도마 요스 러바이나 네 셰바드 네 용버스 도마 야타나 근데 셰바보들 하이고 주버스 마자랑 자르스 하고 주버스 어떤 그 말로랑 로케 고르스 네네 남비 돈네 도마 매바 자온디 셰바볼 하이고 주르스 라고 마르스 생고 주버스.
So if we could posit a beginning, then it would be possible to say that, oh, maybe a God made it. Maybe an external source created this consciousness. But because we cannot posit a first, it's not possible. We have to establish that, that this is the case, because it's not possible to establish a first beginning to this consciousness. So we have to say that it is beginningless because of this point. And then
근데 소소 많이 받을 상로 아버코소나 아니 아마 제비 뒤서 소소를 아니 샴바지네 아니 소소를 샴바지와 가딘쳐버스 틴템바스 데 레기 용거레스 마셰버 공화데 베게셔버스 아마 임바데 롤 차사소나 안 아마 가딘쳐버 임바데 내가 수시에도 운도스 번나 샤당 시우당 돈주고 보고줄 되네 안 코론 보고를 시작 장보 가딘쳐버는도스 아니 소소 아마 제비 거소 아니 So
then, once we recognize that these sentient beings have been our mothers, and we come to the conclusion of this, then we can move on to the next step of the this particular formula that you asked of. The next step being remembering their kindness. Remembering the kindness that they have shown us, and remembering because of their love and so forth, how kind they have been to us. And you can see this even in the animal kingdom, where animals which were considered extremely harmful or dangerous, or vicious, where we can see in the animal kingdom where this type of animal, such as a lion or a tiger, might be particularly harmful or vicious towards other animals, but they are very gentle and kind around their young. So we can see even in the examples of the animal kingdom how kind mothers are. This is why the second step is called remembering their kindness.
보고 조종 아마 옛날 때 나오고 도와서 안 보고 조종 아마 들 강에 보고 맞지도 강에 누웠어. 근데 보고 시보 주스네 되네. 네 보고 시보 상중진 베가리 좀 말বে. 아마 가리 아마 매는 가서 말해요 말았어.
say de then 아마 가서 로파체 the 보고 the 조고나라.
됐어 그걸
가래 내 제이슨.
어떤데시나 디그로 아마 두고노를 주는 뭐 샴바진 냐요 와르스 난 마제류 아말 강에시다요 와르스 제타네 보고 된 베칼리 커버스 된 오마테 된 주는 뭐 소고도 와스 가린체 버스 아마 가린체 버마도 가서 머레 투아요 마르스.
So in this when we speak of the kindness and so forth that our mothers have shown us, we can see that they had to carry us in their stomach for a very long time. For a 9-month period of time, they had to have various types of suffering and constantly think about what they used or what they put into their bodies during that period of time. And then when we came out, once we were born, there was an intense amount of pain that took place and an intense amount of suffering that has to take place by trying to make sure that we had the things that we needed. If we didn't have a mother caring for us and she wasn't so careful while we were in the wombs, we could not have been born, and we wouldn't have the faculties that we have at this point. So it's because of this that we can see the kindness that she has shown. So once one recognizes the kindness, then naturally he or she turns to the next step, which is wishing to repay that kindness, or feeling a sense of duty or responsibility to pay that kindness back. And after the idea comes into one's mind of wishing to repay the kindness, then the idea that how could we repay the kindness? Oh, if we could bring them to a state of happiness, that would be repaying kindness. If we could bring them to a state beyond suffering, that would bring them to, that would be fulfilling their desires and their needs. So we remember their kindness, we wish to repay their kindness, and then we cultivate love, which is the idea of wishing that they have happiness, and we cultivate compassion, which is wishing that they be free from suffering. So the steps now are in order, are remembering that sentient beings are our mothers, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness. Then the third one is love, but it's called love through the force of attraction, Yonggi Shamba. And the fifth one is called great compassion, Nimji Chembo. So these are the first 5 steps.
What did Mashi Tinen Tizo Yongu Shamba Niji? What Namar Hassan Drubarova?
And the
Hassan said, Sinjan Taji in the Dwalunga, the Naru Nagi, Dungam Naru Nagi.
Lesser. So the next is called the extraordinary attitude. It's the 6th step. And this 6th step is the attitude that states, I myself will take on the task alone to free all sentient beings from suffering. I will make it my sole duty to bring sentient beings to a place beyond suffering.
What the Lasson is that? Ta ama Dwalunga, the Dungam Mazu, Nuba Yomaris, Nuba Sanjil Yoris. Nela Sanji come to Sanji come to Bashaw, Sanji Tone, and then Ama Dwalunga, Dungam Mabazuna Matana, Nuba Mendoza, Shantu Saint Leon, and Trevo, Dumbatres.
So the 7th one is the actual mind that aspires to enlightenment, or bodhicitta. It's the actual result of the 6 causal factors in the 7-point cause and effect for achieving bodhicitta. And what happens here is that the practitioner, at the state of extraordinary attitude, makes a commitment to free all sentient beings. But the next step is that he or she recognizes that they do not have the abilities to do that. There is no ability at present to take sentient beings out of suffering and bring sentient beings to a state of happiness. So who has that potential? Buddha does. And then the next step is that we wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings so that we can bring them to a state of happiness beyond suffering. So these 6 causal factors produce the 7th result, which is bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment.
Oh, Tusum Gale, then a Quacha Lilabores, Gun Julia Gale Covers, Tabat the Kungores, Tabat and the Jundimanga, and the Santa Maina, and the Saint Galical Trabacha was there. 냥뉴 갈레 싸네 안에 고야 부차용 거스 뇽아제 용고 요사르스.
So it might be easy to have an intellectual understanding of these topics. To just understand these words is not necessarily so difficult, but to put them into practice and to actually achieve these realizations is very difficult. One must again and again and again familiarize themselves familiarize him or herself with these topics over and over again and look at them from every angle of analysis, and then after one has done this and looked at them through every angle of analysis, then the actual realizations can take place, and one can achieve the ultimate realization, or the ultimate desirous realization in this case, which is the bodhicitta.
단다 상주 생도 줄 맞네 바차 뭐자자 그랬어 바차 뭐자자도 저와 샤말 대 바차 미네 저와 샤말이야 상주 생고야 텔레야 용고 그랬어.
So even if in this life we don't produce the realization within our continuums of bodhicitta, if we don't have all the causal factors present, at least we'll be able to leave imprints within our continuum for future lives.
바차 상로게 보고 나도 러더 로정 지금 보고 가시 레라고 시행도 왔어. 그 저항 한번 바차야 보여드렸어. 가시 인딩에서 모두 셰도도 왔어. 그 바차 인딩에서 가시 가질러나 셰카도 왔어. 바차 조버에서 바차 상로에서.
We can see in the case of the school, for instance, there are those students who have a higher level of intelligence and understand things very well. This is from imprints of wisdom imprints of these various things from previous actions. There are those who have a medium level, and these are because there's a medium level of imprints, and then those who have a very small level, and it's because there's very little imprints within there. So this is the explanation of the differentiation between beings and their levels of intelligence or levels of knowing.
셰로라 찌떡 셰로도 주중 셰로스 보고 맞지 전에 리바 상부지도 와 찌떡 셰로스 그저 가 바차 거기 셰와 상부도 와
찌떡 셰로 찌떡
제바 bon으로 그 찌떡 셰로
제와
bon
오케이
그 담보 제용되는 셰로 상부도 와 찌떡 셰로라 그랬어 그 천들 상고 말고 담보니 셰로 상부대 정함이 바차 오고 그랬어 양 가실래 담보 정도의 제발 매나야 안 갈래 장 놓고 리바 야야 로장도와 유중 싫어서 갈래 리바 상부 줘야 요로다.
So we will be able to have these various wisdoms or the arisal of wisdom or the production of wisdom take place by continuous familiarization with these various topics. The arisal of wisdom is the introductory level of wisdom that one gets initially from hearing and understanding slightly, and once there is arisal wisdom, then the next type of wisdom, which is the wisdom in practice, is possible. Wisdom realized by practice is possible. So it's necessary to have the arisal wisdom, which is produced through analysis and through studies.
다 저항하마 여바도 체리바가 시부 따지지고 해서 저항하마 여다면 뭐 따지지고로다 남비 취는 어디서 저항하마 리바 쪼드레스.
So the Buddhist belief is that there are these previous lives and because of it, the consciousness. And we see that the scientists have over the years tried to figure out if it's possible that there are future lives or past lives. There have been various studies where they've tried to find out about these things, and they would it would be helpful for them to look at this material as well.
다 체리바조가 rel되는 거는 하말 단소선 되게 되네 루고는 얘는 루고를 다지지는 단소서야진 도스 루고도 와서 어떤 답은 못 했어.
So it's very similar to what did he say about the bones?
체리바조가 레지를 원하는 루고라고도 와. 다 단소서 그냥 아마 중국에서 시에도 왔어.
Okay, so by digging up fossils and dinosaur bones, they're able to posit that there were dinosaurs maybe on this mountain previously, because they're able to get the bones out and put them together in such a way that they can create the actual animal.
그리고 인자 그리고 가만 것도 소고로 근데 세제도 다는 소스가 되지 요아르스 단다 요마로다 하만 도시에
So they have these bones, they put them together, and then they can say, oh yes, we're sure there were dinosaurs. So it's very similar to this form of reasoning.
와 남바가 다 셰바가 돈주데르스 셰바 셰바 가만 것도 소고데 셰바 가마 주에서 강사 지요아르스 셰바 가마 주에서 강사를 도마메 버르스라데
So the Buddhists state that there is a previous lives because consciousness, and consciousness creates consciousness. Whereas the scientists state that there was life before us because of positing dinosaurs. The Buddhists state that our lives were before us as well, based on the explanation of consciousness.
And the
scientists are able to look at the bone and get an understanding or an idea of how old it is. Then triwa chik then itzar. Kangin sena the chutsu juni dan karma jipju jinga. Juchi jipju jinga tsargu the zundu tsokson. Then natsu chutsu juchi dan karma jipju jinga tsar then
Okay.
The tanda the triwa chi ere.
Yeah, okay.
There's one more question, right? You had a question? You could ask. Well, maybe other people though have the question. Right.
What's the significance of that? And
Okay.
why do we say the refuge prayer 3 times?
Okay.
And the second part of that.
Kong triwa the zonga nyamlan chena then sansan the dun digre sansan nishu sachi sansan ja dangje and garshene the trong the then sanje chodang temsum lagdu garshene the dendel gare.
So now Sabijidris, Tajin Sun Goasagris, Sanin and Moasagris, Sasun and the Lemoasagris. He had never ina, Yajaji Wag Tendi Yoris, Chanan Jabaina, Jikotendi Chijusers. Ninan Jana, Nimo Yomaro. Yan soon and Yaji Yomaro, Yaja Yong Tendi Yoris, Asupish.
Then garshene the trong de garshene nishu sanga yomare garshene nishu sachi.
That's also teen zoris. Kuya Jimmy the Dango Yomare. So teen loa, so loa zoris.
Su individual.
So loa.
Yene the sanje becha nishu sachi ke champure dun ke champure jadang je ke champure sanje jeju trimason sanje the gu trimason sanje juni trimason then garishene trong de lapson.
Sanje go that the je the Atisha jena gazena and digger is worse. Yeah.
So then the nishu sachi dendel yomare nishu sachi jadang je the sum the trong de dendel yomare be. The trong ke champure gangisena the jaundro kandun ngatsu tem sum lagadu garshene temji lagamare.
Tajin to the Abushidaris. Tajin to the Abushidaris. Kalikangurs and the Sun and Jawur.
Rinpoche, the jutsen gare.
Juseteris.
Jutsen de.
Tajin, woman and a Kalikagurus, then the Sasun and Jaya.
Then a chichena sum konsu kalikas and chichena ngatsu ni dana.
Chin and the
Ni dana diggerbe. Then
Then
ngatsu chutsu tem ni dangare digre. Then garshene the zambaling the songchuna the zambaling chutsu tamche tem sum dangadu. Chutsu tamche tem sum dangadu. The drepong lo saling tem sum dangadu garshene.
Example. Soon and digger, Jin and diggers.
All right. So the reason for the numbering, when it's really all said and done, the truth behind it is that the more numbers you can do, the more amount of merit you actually create. The Buddha was giving examples of numbers that you could go to just to say numbers of some sort. So by saying do it 21 times or 108 times, these were just numbers that the Buddha gave in order for us to utilize, in order to create more merit. Then with the refuge prayer, for instance, if you could do the refuge prayer 4 times, it would be more merit than doing it 3 times. But Buddha was trying to set an example or some kind of guideline so that there was some sort of something established, or not a criteria, but a norm established where people did it at least 3 times. So that is why we do it like this. It's so that we can create more merit. And as far as the numbers go themselves, they might have some sort of symbolism, but the real reason for it is the more that you actually do, the more virtue you create or more merit you create. So I was asking Rinpoche, why then, why does every center in the United States, in the world, do it 3 times? Why when you're in Drepung do you do it 3 times? Why don't we have a meeting and start doing it 2 times? That's what I just said to him in Tibetan. Why don't we all meet and do it 4 times so we get more merit? And Rinpoche said that there's got to be an example or something, a basis that people go by, so that there's a norm established. So if people from Drepung go here, they're doing it the same number of times. So.
That's so we don't get like overwhelmed by people who do like 100,000 prostrations.
So yeah, Rinpoche just said, so if you can't do, for instance, 3, you could do 1. That's what Rinpoche just said.
And the second part to my question is, throughout the day, like I find myself like, I have an affinity with Paul and Lama, Chenrezig and Tara. I find myself like through the day, like there's really no structure. Is that a problem? Or I mean,
Structure as far as,
like,
is it? It's a.
like I don't like my visualizations aren't so crisp, and it's not really like, okay, I'm gonna sit out and do like 21 Tara mantras.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna do 21 Paul and Lama, and then 21 Chenrezig. It's just kind of like whatever I think about at that minute. Like if I'm having a problem with, like if I feel like I need protection, then I'll do Paul and Lama.
Okay.
If I feel like I want, health and healing, I do Tara. There's really no, my mind is so sporadic. It's just all over the place.
Rinpoche, the Stasha de Segudu, kon de Padan Lamo, dang Droma, dang Chenrezig, the Gapudu, kon Dewa Yure, kongi Tsampa. Then Nima Dapa kon the Hla, the Nyamlan Cheodu. And kongi Triwa, kon the Tambo, Nipa, Sumba, Nyamlan Chegamare, kon the kon Shena, then the Padan Lama is on that donadu. Then a kon Lona, then Chenrezig ondu. Then Nima Tamche kon Nyamlan Chegadu. They yapodue. Gangesena kon the me kashe the karma sumju gomjagadu. Then a kon the sanlodang, the gemma sanlodang amare. Gom sanlodang, then gom langna sanlodang amare. Stasha segadu the kon lana sanlodang, kon nina sanlodang. The Nima Tanche, the junior Yabudue.
Yabures.
So it's actually the Ngarishene Yapure, the Kongichua.
Goa Mama Yungurist.
So it's good actually if you're practicing throughout the day because you're creating more virtue.